how we doing, peeps? A little bit of something unusual for today, and it's a terrible thing to reference oneself, but I'm going to do it because, I'm mad like that, right? So what you're going to get today is a video that I posted a year ago. It was my first, if I remember rightly. I'll check, but I think it was. So I'm going to attach it to this, all right, and I'm going to post it again. And there's a reason why I'm posting it again, because I think it's probably more important now than it's ever been. And that's because it deals with the subject of genocide. We hear this thrown about all the time. Genocide. There's going to be an LGBTQ plus trend. Oh, it's all genocide. Let's genocide everyone. Let's genocide them all. Now, genocide is a very specific word with a very serious meaning, and it has a deep and profound meaning to people who have been victims of genocides, who have seen the genocide up front, have seen perhaps what happened in Nazi Germany, or have seen perhaps what happened in Russia with Stalin and the gulags, or have seen what has happened with Ceausescu or Pol Pot, or anybody, right? So the word genocide is a very specific word. It has a very specific meaning. It was given that specific meaning for a reason. So I've got this video that I put up over a year ago, and I'm putting it up again just so that you can all watch it. And I urge you to do so because I did some research on this to try to understand the word. And I think it's important that where we see people saying that there's a genocide, that they are absolutely torn to shreds immediately. So without further ado, here's me, right, from a year ago. Let me know what you think in the comments, all right? This is an important one. Genocide is a specific word with a specific use, and it shouldn't be being used lightly. No. You would have thought by now, wouldn't you? I mean, you would have thought, he says, that we wouldn't have so much problem with nonsense on the Twitters. But oh boy, has it kicked off in the last couple of days. I don't know whether you've been watching. It's rather gleeful. I shouldn't say that, because, people get hurt with this nonsense, but I can't help myself in thinking that so much of it is so ridiculous that we really ought to get to grips with it on a much greater level. But it starts really with someone who said something that's upset the critical social justice crowd, including the likes of Owen Jones, or Tolkien X as I call him, and he's obviously upset the critical social justice crowd himself because they're happily calling him a transphobe. You couldn't make this up. No, so it always eats itself and it always comes for its own. It's the type of creature it is. So this critical social justice crowd are now happily having a good old time walloping Owen Jones over the head, which is something that I'm really, Schadenfreude, jouissance, the enjoyment at somebody else's misfortune, which I shouldn't take such comfort from, but do. But it started really because some of them started throwing around the word genocide. I mean, for God's sake. Somebody was calling for the genocide of certain people. Go and have a look. You'll find it. It's easy enough to find. But it's just imagine that you're using that word so easily. They keep talking about the pending genocide, and in this case, the pending genocide of trans people. Trans people aren't the problem, whatever that means, because I don't even understand it. Trans is a collective word, like vegetable. If you're talking about people with dysphoria, they aren't the bloody problem. The problem is trans rights activists. Get your head around that, because that makes it a lot easier to see what comes next. So they decided that there is now a pending genocide. Right? As if it's as simple as saying, I'm just waiting for an Amazon delivery. It really sickens me when they do that. It lessens the use of the word. They remove its significance. And it's important that it removes its significance, or understanding why it does, because we live in a world now where to simply tap people on the shoulder doesn't work anymore. You've got to scream and shout at the top of your voice. Rather like the advertising world, where years ago it would say, new broom sweeps clean. And, it would just be a broom. And it would tell you about the bristles. It would tell you about the handle. It would tell you how good the broom was. Well, that's right. It seems like a decent, reliable broom. I'll have the broom. Life's not that now. Not like that now at all. So what we end up with is a situation where if you're like me, you'll be happily surfing, looking for information, and up comes an advert. Changed my life. I've seen a new way of living. And you click on it, and it's an advert for dog food. Right, okay, so this is clickbait. They call this clickbait. But we all do it in our own individual ways. In that we're screaming across a technological landscape where everybody's vying for attention and we're trying to get it too. So we can all do it. And we've begun to do it in our speech in the last few years. So you'll say something to somebody which is pretty mundane but quite good news. And they go, oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's incredible. Oh, my God, how extraordinary. As if it's something amazing when you've just, bought a new T-shirt or managed to get out of your car without catching your fingers in the door. It's just insane. But this hyperbole is dangerous. What it does is it flattens language. So if you say that something's, oh, it's amazing, what do you do about something that's amazing? Really, the Grand Canyon's amazing. The pyramids are amazing. Amazing is a word you should use, little. But not as little as you should use the word genocide. Which you know as well as I do is an implication that you're adjacent to Hitler. Isn't it? That's what they're saying, Oh, you're trying to get a genocide started. It's a pending genocide of people. It means you're adjacent to Hitler. And this is a trick that the critical social justice mob use quite often. They try and push you to be adjacent to somebody awful. Hitler's about as awful as it gets. He's up there with Stalin and Mao, and all the extremists from the lessons of the 20th century. But it's interesting to think that they feel it's okay to do that, to imply that there's a slippery slope fallacy. That just because somebody says X, we're going to end up with the genocide. It's the most insane thing. And I was interested to find out why they do it, because I think they do it in order to make speaking difficult, in order to make language difficult. And I think they do it to push you to such an extreme that you have to justify your position. And my advice is just tell them to fuck off. It's the easiest way to do it, right? So, because by that time it's mutual destruction. You're wasting your time with these people. But I was quite inspired by this to go and have a look and see what the word genocide is and where it came from. And it was 1944 when it arrived. And that was after, obviously, the Second World War and the terrible guilt that we felt collectively and probably should feel, and still do, I think, collectively as a race, to what happened. And we wanted to come together to provide a word that described objectively what genocide was. And it needed to be objective because it was going to become a law. You can't have laws on subjectivity. Lots of critical social justice warriors don't get that, but you can't. So genocide was a word that came about. It didn't stop us from, it didn't enable us to stop the Holodomor or what happened in Rwanda or Armenia, but it came. And it was an interesting process that got it. Some people weren't happy about it, some were. The arguments are going to go on forever. But it's worth remembering that genocide is a particular word with a particular meaning. So the history of it is fascinating. It was originally taken up fully, I suppose, in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe a bit more, by a guy called Dr. Gregory Stanton, who runs a website called Genocide Watch. See, gender gets everywhere. Genocide Watch. And he's worth a look at, right? So I put the links in the essay that goes with this little diatribe of mine. And he was an interesting fellow, impeccable credentials. His parents, Elizabeth and Henry, were respectively a suffragette and an abolitionist, which I think is fascinating. So you see this idea of the freedom of the individual and freedom and rights and equality. Stanton came from good stock, and what a surprise. Good stock gives us more good stock. So it really shouldn't surprise us, I suppose, or me, that the most dangerous of all our cultural forces at the moment, which is critical social justice, should end up taking the idea of genocide and making it something lightweight and queering it in order to use it for their linguistic games. It's a very wicked thing to do, really. As usual, I'll invoke Hannon's razor, but there'll be lots of lumpen stupidity going on, is all I can say. And don't listen to these ranting nutters, they don't know what they talk about. But what was even more worrying was, there are people that know this, right? And they're still doing what they're doing because they're critically social justice ideologues. That's what they are, critical social justice guys, but they're still doing it. So some have taken Gregory Stanton's, what I would say, definitive 10 steps to genocide. And I'll just go through them quickly, just by name. Classification, symbolization, discrimination, dehumanization, organization, polarization, persecution, extermination, and finally, denial. Right, now if you go and look at that in detail, and the links are in the essay, if you go and look at that in detail and try to understand exactly what Gregory meant by that, then it will really highlight to you how ridiculous it is that somebody would say that there's a pending genocide of anyone. There certainly isn't, just because somebody says something on Twitter. This rank stupidity needs to stop. Now, what only has that happened, including the essay, is a pyramid of hate. They've now got a pyramid of hate, in which they've included, on the way to genocide, by the way, microaggressions, jokes, right? These people are incorrigible. Microaggressions, jokes, and what they call social avoidance. How would anybody in their right mind not practice social avoidance? Have you met most people? It's not the only one. These pyramids have been spawned all over the place by stupid people, mostly occupying, I imagine, HR or teachers that aren't really that good at it, or just the general miscreants of the critical social justice ideology who simply want to find a way to make people uncomfortable, or behaviourists, which I think is where it's truly come from, who want to make sure that you're forced to behave the way and they want you to behave, like some curtain-twitching aunt who thinks farting in public isn't funny. Thank God those people are rare. But they use this. Remember I said earlier, they use it to push you to an extremist view. And I was talking to a very good friend of mine yesterday about this particular phenomenon. And she said to me, she says, bigoteering. And she's right. Bigoteering. They're attempting to make you an ist or an ism. That's what they want to do. Make you an ist or an ism. And it's a rhetoric that's designed to attack and label you as an oppressor. See what they said there about that group of people? Oh my God, they must be a Nazi. Fuck off. Right? Nonsense. Now, another of their favourite words is eugenics. Again, you think eugenics, you think Hitler. Oh gosh, there we go. It's a horrific idea, and again, one that we've defined. It's a particular field of study that's dead, but that we need to understand today because there are other people around the world that are working on it. So it's important we understand what it is. I get sick of this nonsense where people start shouting genocide. It's such hyperbole. Oh, well, we're going to, it's everybody's against everybody. Black against white, gay against straight, Asian against Caribbean, whatever you want. So let's not be so hyperbolic as them, because it makes us look like fools. And if you want to talk about eugenics, I think telling gay boys they're girls and preventing their more normal physical development with a view to sterilisation, medication, and then the removal of their cock and balls or breasts is literally eugenics. You might want to think about that. But it's difficult to put our head around the fact that the behaviourist mindset, the mindsets that drives people to teach or try to force others to behave in a certain way, is a kind, I think, of neuroeugenics. We're going to need new words for some of this. Neuroeugenics. They are influencing the mind, particularly of children and the young. They are influencing the mind of these people to head to a world that is just full of awful ideas about power and oppression, nothing to do with the competence that we've seen that has brought us to the stability we have and the technologically luxurious world in which we now live. But they're obfuscating and they're complicating language. But it's just queering. It's just the same old nonsense from the queer folk, the gender ideology and all the nonsense that comes with it. It's boring, quite frankly. It's stupid. It's mostly linguistic trickery, and it's getting old quickly. We need to do something about this. So subscribe. Hit the button. The link to my Patreon is underneath. You'll find the short essay that goes with this wee video available on my blog, and therefore you'll be able to download it. So if you've got any interest, let me know in the comments. Put it in. Oh, and as soon as I started this yesterday, I've only had 2 death threats. Gosh, I feel special. So please tell me in your comments what you think. If you want to know about the winning mindset for warrior teachers, where you can join other people like you in seminars and learn how to fight back against the critical social justice cult, then again, I'll have the links for you down in the bottom of the description of this video. Other than that, listen, thanks for listening. I'm not going on too much because I talk too much as it is. Ask Graham, he'll tell you. Right, okay, folks, you have a great day. Good to see you. Thanks very much for your time. Bye-bye.